Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I would like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the chapter goals for leadership teams. We're going to be going through the system and show you how you can plan out the next 6 months or 12 months of your leadership team term in order to achieve the best results for your chapter. Now, this goes beyond just statistics and being able to track the statistics, because really we can do that with a lot of the existing reports in the system, the PALMS report and the membership dues report and the roster report and all the other reports in the system that we have. The goals will do that by establishing the goals. It will tell you how you're doing along the way. But more importantly, what it does is it allows you to plan out activities for the chapter for the next 6 months or a year of your leadership team term, so that you don't lose sight of important things that happen on a monthly basis and what you should be concentrating on as the leadership team. As a member myself and somebody that's been on the leadership team a number of times, one of the pitfalls that we always have is that we tend to think about our meeting and think about our chapter while we're there. And then we go off and we go back to our businesses, we go back to our lives and our families, and we get really, really busy. And it's hard to remember to plan some of those things out. One of the great things about the goals program is it really allows you to proactively do that. So that's what we're going to be reviewing today is the chapter goals program. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things to keep track of, the first of which is that this is a live webinar, and I'd like to thank Tony Wolf especially for being here today and wishing me luck. As we go through, though, if you have any questions or comments like Tony has, please do feel free to submit those comments or ask those questions right here in the GoToWebinar software. There's a little questions panel. You type those in. I will see them pop up on my screen right away, and I'll be able to address them or answer them. Or if it's something completely and totally unrelated to the content, I will be happy to spend some time after the webinar to go through any additional questions that you might have. We're scheduled for approximately 30 minutes worth of content. I like to make sure that I'm respectful of everybody's time. So if you do have another appointment to get to or something else to get back to, I will be sure to end the content portion as close as possible to the bottom of the hour. That being said, if you have questions, you have additional things that you'd like to learn about, I will stay on these sessions unofficially as long as necessary until every single question is answered. Now, we are recording this as we do record all of our webinars. You'll be able to find the recordings in a couple of different places. The first place is to go to the support site, support.bniconnect.com. Or if you're logged into BNI Connect, click this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner. When you click that, it will take you over to the support site. And on the support site, you'll see our list of webinars up front and center here. Then if you scroll down just a little bit to chapter training and documentation, you will see chronologically our recorded webinars month by month. So each month we do a series of 7 member and leadership team webinars that you are welcome to participate in, and you can check out all of the recordings here. For example, we have last month's leadership team goals. So do feel free to check those out, or you can always go directly to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have a ton of learning opportunities up there as well, including all of our recorded webinars and some shorter videos like 3 to 5 minute educational moments that you're welcome to use at your chapters to teach on specific topics. Let's go ahead and get started with today, though. Again, this is the leadership team goals. In order to get to the leadership team goals, we are going to have to go beyond the home screen. The place that we find functions really for data entry and the tools that we're going to use is under the operations menu. I always remember where to find stuff because I think network is going to be all the social media stuff. Operations is where I'm going to go to do any type of input. And reports is always going to be read-only output. Since we're going to be inputting our chapter goals today, what we're going to do is go to the operations menu. And these are really the day-to-day operations of our chapter. Now, once we get here, we have all our different management functions for the chapter here. What we're going to concentrate on today is the one halfway down the list that says Manage Goals. And if I click on Manage Goals, we'll see two things: Enter Chapter Goals and View Chapter Goals. The View Chapter Goals, once we've entered them, we can go in and view our progress with the goals, and it will populate with the monthly POMS statistics as well. But before we can view them, we do need to go in and enter them. Now I'm going to be entering some goals for our Antarctica BRR chapter. And when I click on Enter Chapter Goals, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask me, when do I want to enter the goals for? We're going to be entering goals. We always enter them in 6-month periods. Now, it's assuming that I want to proactively look at the next 6-month quote-unquote BNI term, which begins in October. However, I can backdate goals. I can start it from this month, but I will only be able to work on 6 months at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to April when this current 6-month term started, and let's start entering the goals from there. Before you start entering the goals, you will need to set a long-term vision and a mission statement. Now, the long-term vision is really, where do you want to get to as a chapter? Now, typically this isn't going to be the hard numbers of where you want to get to. That's what the goals are actually for. This is going to be more of an overall, 30,000 foot CEO level view of where you want to take your chapter. Now, our long-term vision up here for the BRR chapter is that we want to grow the chapter to be the largest in the entire continent of Antarctica. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius, which shouldn't be too hard in Antarctica. But all in all, you want to come up with a goal, a long-term vision for your chapter, and hopefully one that will be passed on to the next leadership team as well. The second thing it's going to ask you to do is to come up with a mission statement. So if the long-term vision is where you want to eventually get to, the mission statement is really how you're going to get there. What are your core values that you're going to have on your way to that long-term goal? Now, in the BRR chapter in Antarctica, we have one that's very close to the BNI mission statement, and it is to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. So again, that is our mission statement up there in Antarctica. So once you have those established, click the Go button. And what we'll see happen is the screen will change, and it's going to pop up our goals spreadsheet. The sheet is broken up into different columns, and the columns are for the different months. So you can see we started in April. We have April, May, June, July, August, and September. As I said, we can only work on 6 months at a time, but we can go and work on any 6-month period. And right now, everything is at zeros because we haven't filled out the goals yet. Within the spreadsheet, you'll see that each section is a different chapter success driver. We have attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and finally, thank you for closed business. At the bottom, we'll have a save button and discard changes. Keep in mind that you can hit the save anytime while you're doing this. And just like if you were working on a big spreadsheet or working on an Excel document, you do want to save this as often as possible. One thing to keep in mind is BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout. So if there's no activity on the screen for 30 minutes, it will log you out of BNI Connect. And if you haven't saved it in a while, you will lose those changes. So be sure to save at least every half hour, but after you've made some entries. Now, going back to the top, first, have to make a decision on how we want to calculate our goals. Whether we're going to be doing our goals as basically a big number or a small number. Are we going to look at this as a whole chapter total or as a per member statistic? One thing to keep in mind is that if you are doing this as a per member statistic, that it will base those per member statistics based on your goal number of members. So later on, as you're going to look at your results, keep that in mind that it is showing the goals in the goal number of per members. I can tell you that most chapters that use this around the world have this set as whole chapter. Another note is that this defines the record keeping for the entire spreadsheet. So you can't set, for example, attendance percentage as a whole chapter and then total number one-to-ones per member and then CEUs as a whole chapter. It's kind of an all or nothing thing for the entire report. So now we need to start filling out the actual goals. And this is something where you may find it helpful, for example, to work with the entire leadership team, maybe to print out a blank copy of the goals ahead of time and do this on paper and then just go enter the statistics later. But let's discuss a lot of these various chapter success drivers. Now, the first one on the list here is attendance percentage. Now, it's a pretty straightforward one. So what I always like to do is I kind of like to work backwards from where I'd like to be to where we are now. Now, because we are currently past April and almost through with May, I actually kind of know what these statistics are already. So what I can do is kind of work off of where we are. And I know that right now in the Antarctica chapter, we're having some attendance issues. We only have about an 86% attendance last month, and this month we're only at about 88%. But by the end of this leadership team term, the 6-month term, I'd like to get us up to at least 96% attendance. So now what I really need to do is kind of split the difference and work my way in between the 88 and the 96. So I'm probably going to need to get up to 90%, the 92%, 94%. So I'm kind of moving my way up 2% each month. That's a pretty respectable goal for our attendance percentage. Now, after you put your numbers in, what you'll see below them is mechanisms. And what mechanisms are different tools that you can use as chapter leadership in order to help to achieve those goals. So, for example, what would help in the chapter in order to increase your attendance percentage? So one thing might be to make sure that your vice president and the membership committee are sending out the monthly control letters. So when a member misses a meeting and then misses possibly 2 meetings or 3 meetings, they should get the membership committee control letter saying, please be careful. If you have more than 3 absences, we may open your category. So we're going to concentrate on that in the month of June to make sure that those control letters are being sent out. So I'm just going to type in the mechanism here, VP letters for absences. Okay, so that's going to be a mechanism. That's what we're going to concentrate on in the month of June to work on that. And we can put in a second mechanism as well. So maybe as part of this initiative, we're also going to make sure the educational coordinator does a supporting educational moment on the control letters. So maybe an educational moment regarding control letters. All right, what we want to do is really plan out some activities for the next couple of months. That way we can go back to our sheet here, and when we're really, really, really busy, or we're in the middle of the summer here in August and September, and we're thinking, oh my goodness, we're so much going on and I just want to go to the beach. I don't want to think about, what to do in the chapter. You'll already have it worked out. Now, if you're trying to think of ideas for what different mechanisms can be, there's a handy little button up here at the top. It says Chapter Goal Guide. And if you click on the Chapter Goal Guide, that will give you some suggested mechanisms for the chapter success drivers. So for attendance, we can see the educational moment on the importance of why to be present at the meeting, sending out the control letters, acknowledging people for perfect attendance. I think that's a great idea. Recognition is huge when it comes to enforcing positive things in the chapter. So what if I was just to highlight this, acknowledge people for perfect attendance? I'm going to copy this, and I think that's going to be something that we want to make sure we're doing in August and July. So let's get that habit established over those 2 months, and that'll remind us to do that for the next couple of months. Now I made some changes here, so I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button. And now my changes have been saved successfully. Now you don't have to do these in order, by the way, and actually it may make sense to do them out of order. So I know for some of these, the total number of one-to-ones and the CEUs and some other things, visitors and new memberships, that really is going to have a lot to do with how big do I want the chapter to grow to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump all the way down here to number of members in chapter. And I'd like to establish a goal for how big we'd like the chapter to be, because once I figure that out, I'll know approximately how many memberships I need to do that and how many visitors we need to get in to support those memberships. So I know that right now, for example, last month we were at 25 members, and this month we're at 26 members. Now, I'd really, really like to grow this chapter to be 35 members by the time we are all done with our leadership team term here. So I'm going to put in that we want to grow this to be 35 members. And again, I like to just split the difference as we're going through. So I know I'm going to need 9 members over the course of those next 3 months. So let's say this is going to be 29, 28, 30, 32, and 35. So we're working our way up over the course of those 4 months. Now, what are some mechanisms in order to help out with those goals? Perhaps what we want to do is, I think we want to start a Visitors Day in our chapter. Now, we need, in order to do a proper Visitors Day, we are going to need somewhere in the vicinity of 45 to 60 days to plan that, especially if we'd like to get our director involved with that visitor day. So what I'm going to do is, we're already just about into June, so I'm going to plan that Visitors Day for somewhere in August. So we're going to do a visitor day in August, and hopefully that'll give us the bump up to get us to our goal as well. And what are some other things that we can do to support that number of members in chapter goal that we want to get to 35? During the next couple of months also, I think it would be good to play the BNI game. For those of you that don't know what the BNI game is, the BNI game is a great way to really get some excitement and activity going in the chapter. What you do is you split your chapter up into teams, usually 3 or 4 teams, maybe even more, depending on how many members are in your chapter. Usually no more than about 5 or 6 people per team. And you compete against each other for points. And everything you do in the chapter, mostly positive, but you can have negative as well, has a point value to it. So when you show up on time for a meeting, maybe that's 5 points. And if you bring a qualified referral to the meeting, maybe that's 10 points. And turning in thank you for closed business, maybe that's some points, or CEUs are worth points. So really the BNI game can support a whole bunch of different chapter success drivers because you're celebrating all that activity, and it really brings out the competitive spirit of the chapter as well. So what I'm going to do is put in the BNI game here. Now the BNI game usually lasts for no more than 6 to 8 weeks, but we're going to start it in the middle of June and go through August, leading up to the Visitors Day. So I'm going to put BNI game in for a couple of months here. Now, looking at this, the BNI game is actually going to support a whole bunch of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. And what other things can the BNI game support? Well, because we're putting points on referrals, it's going to support the number of referrals. It's also going to support the thank you for closed business because we're going to put some points on that. Now, new memberships, we're going to assign a whole bunch of points to, maybe it's going to be worth 50 points if you bring a visitor, and maybe it'll be 100 points if that visitor becomes a member. So it's really supporting just about everything on the list here. Number of one-to-ones, and it's also going to be supporting attendance as well. So let me add those in here. And now our spreadsheet is starting to come to life a little bit. Now, the next thing we need to look at is if we're looking at the number of members in the chapter, in order to get to that goal of number of members, we need to actually add new members to the chapter. We need to actively invite people to become part of our referral group, our referral team. So we do that with new memberships. So as I'm filling these out, one thing to keep in mind when it comes to new memberships is you always do need a couple extra than you think you need. And that's because every chapter does have some degree of attrition. A lot of times it's for good reasons. People retire, they move, they get a different job, they are too busy. But the fact remains that most average chapters will lose on average 12 to 15 members per year. So I like to build in a little bit of a cushion when it comes to new memberships. So I know that we had one new member last month and the month before. Now, in order to get from 26 members to 28 members by the end of the month, we're actually going to need to kick things up a little bit. We're probably going to need 3 new members, 1 to account for the attrition, and another 2 to achieve our goal. And we're going to need the same thing next month, 1 for attrition and 2 for our goal. And the same for the next month, 1 for attrition and 2 for our goal. Now the next month we have a total of 3, so we're going to need at least 4. And that's good because we have a visitor day scheduled, so hopefully that'll help us to achieve that added push for the more members. So when we're talking about new memberships, there's also some mechanisms that we can use in order to elevate this process. One of those is to make sure that we're doing the visitor orientation process, and that's at the end of the meeting where the visitor host sits with the visitors and talks about the benefits of BNI, gives them an application, and answers any questions that they might have about applying to the chapter. A lot of times people don't end up submitting an application simply because they're not asked to. So here on the mechanisms, I'm going to put in visitor orientation. And of course, if you'd like more mechanisms, just take a look at the chapter goal guide. And that will help you through, and you can take a look at new memberships in order to look at other things that you can do to support this goal. For example, we can make sure that we implement a referral thank you program, or that we make sure that we are handling the visitor sign-in sheets properly. Now, right above new memberships, we also need to figure out how many visitors. So in order to get new members, we need to have visitors. Now, depending on what your conversion ratio is, will depend on how many visitors you may need to support those new memberships. Generally speaking, a good conversion rate will be somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 10. So I'm going to say that we're we're on that higher end of the scale in Antarctica. We tend to give them gifts of fish and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that we need to have at least 4 visitors for each new member that we're going to have. So I know that we had some visitors in the past couple of months. So in order to get 3 new memberships, I'm going to say that we're going to need 12 new visitors in the months, or an average of somewhere about 4 a week. And then for that final month, we'll need to have at least 16 visitors. Again, good thing we have that Visitors Day to support that. And of course, we have more mechanisms that we can do here. Now, Visitor Day supports visitors and new memberships, so I'm also going to copy that into these fields. We could also have other things in the chapter going on, like bring your substitute day. And maybe work from the classifications not in chapter report in BNI Connect. And of course, there is the chapter goal guide. Now, the next ones are more of the personal goals. We're going to have the number of one-to-ones, the CEUs, and the referrals. For me, this calculation is actually pretty straightforward. Our goal in our region and in our chapter is that we call it the power of one. We want to be able to show up to every meeting every week with at least 1 referral, have had 1 one-to-one, 1 CEU, and sponsor 1 visitor per month. So when it comes to the referrals, that would mean that if we're averaging 4 meetings a month and we have 25 members in the chapter, that's going to be 100. So, and this would be 104. And this one should be 112. And then we have 120. 128, and 140. And the nice thing is that these are going to be the same for number of one-to-ones and number of CEUs. So 100, 104, 112, 120, 128, and 140. I can do the same thing for number of one-to-ones. Oops, 1,040. That would be a lot of CEUs. And 140. So now we have those filled out as well, and we definitely want to put in some mechanisms for how to support those. And finally, we have the thank you for closed business. Now, I know in our chapter that we really, really want to be over $1 million chapter, which means we're going to have to pass about $100,000 in closed business per month to be a $1.2 million chapter. So I'm just going to put in $100,000 per month. And again, put some mechanisms in order to support those. Now, obviously, I don't have everything filled out today. That's okay. This is an editable form, so you can go back and make adjustments later. You can go back and add things to the list. You can go back and correct some of your goals that you might have been shooting a little too high, or maybe they were very attainable goals that you have surpassed and you need to bump them up a little bit. So you can save this as often as you wish, and you can go back to it as often as you wish. And what I do now is if I go back to operations and under manage goals, I can go to view chapter goals. By default, it's going to show you the current 6-month term at that point. And here I can see where we've been, have our goal, our actual, and then our various mechanisms that we filled out. And of course, you can always print this and have a nice sheet. You can share that with your chapter. By the way, most members in most regions and most chapters will have access to view the chapter goals, but only leadership teams can enter the chapter goals. Now, very quickly, we are at the bottom of the hour. I just want to show you what a real chapter in a real region looks like. There is a particular region here in the United States, the Tampa region, where every chapter uses this very successfully. And just as a testament to their region, they have an average chapter size of over 40 members per chapter, which is amazing. Many regions around the world have an average chapter size closer to the mid 20s, low to mid 20s. So I'm just picking a random chapter here in the Tampa Bay area, and let's take a look at their chapter goals. And I'm never disappointed. Every single chapter always has their goals filled out. We can see what their long-term vision is here: to promote unity among chapter members, to become a powerful team. Their mission statement, to continue to grow the library, back to basics. We can see their goals, and they have goals of 100% attendance, 550 one-to-ones per month. And you can see in April, they hit a number of 427, and they're well on their way this month with 232. They hit their goals with CEUs. They were close on visitors and new memberships. They were pretty close. You can see that they currently have 56 members in their chapter, and their goal was 55, so they're actually ahead of their goal last month. Looks like they did have a little bit of attrition, and they might need to catch up a tiny bit in order to achieve their goal. But all of this information is available, and it will help you track these as you're going through. And it will remind you on a monthly basis what mechanisms, what activities can you do with your chapter to support the goals that you're trying to achieve. All right, so we are at the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do now is to open it up to any questions, but I'd also like to say, for anybody that does need to leave right away at the bottom of the hour, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate the time and the effort you're putting in to become better leaders in your chapter and to help your chapters grow. All right, so do we have any questions at all? I'd love to answer those questions. They can be about the chapter goals or anything else in BNI Connect. While you're thinking of any last minute questions, just a reminder, this is being recorded. I'll record the whole thing as well as any upcoming questions. It will be made available on the support site as well as on our YouTube channel. By the way, a good referral from me is to please let people know about these webinars. We do have one more webinar scheduled for this month, and that is tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the leadership team tools and reports. We're going to dive deeper into the system, show you how to do things like enter speaker rotations and mentors and mentees and some of the reports that I like for leadership teams as well. That's going to be at the same bat time, same bat channel here at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, noon Pacific. So a good referral for me is to please recommend this webinar to your leadership teams and to have them register. And we'll be doing the whole series again next month in June. So stay tuned. I'll be posting that very shortly in the next couple of days. And I'd love to see you at some of those webinars or some of your members. So let's see. Cindy has, she says, not a question, a comment. Great session. We couldn't do this transition without you. So Cindy, thank you so much for being here, especially as an executive director, to be putting this time in to learn the system so that you can better serve your members. So I greatly appreciate you being here. Let's see. Michael Cooper says, do I have to transfer all the info from BNI GTA to BNI Connect, or has the history been updated for me? So as far as the things like, I'm assuming you're talking about POMS reports and statistics for your chapter, Michael? And if so, those should have all been moved over up until, I believe, May 1st, right around May 1st. That's when the data freeze happened in order to migrate the data over. So you do need to manually catch up on this month, I believe. But the stuff from previous years should all be there. Michael, what's your chapter name? If you, Cindy says, if you are asking about goals, you do have to enter all of those because those were not available. So you're in the BNI Leslieville chapter. So let me just take a look, if you don't mind. Let's take a look at the reports here. And if I go to reports at the chapter level, and you can verify this as well, assuming you are now logged into BNI Connect, and I'm going to go to the GTA region. I don't know if you're in region 1 or 2, so GTA 1. And let's take a look at your chapter here, the Leslieville chapter. And we should have, if I run the summary POMS report, and I'm going to go back a couple of years here. But here we have your chapter statistics. So you're only 1 year old. That makes sense because there would only be, X number of weeks, 59 weeks or so. Looks like the longest attendance there. So that is, looks like your information is in there. That was moved over. It's just the last month that you would have to enter. And it should be the same with the other reports. So you should be able to pull up things like a chapter roster report and see the various leaders in your chapter as well as the people in your chapter. And again, things like phone numbers, as people log in and update their profiles, then more of this information will populate going forward. All right. Hopefully that helps, Cindy and Michael. All right, questions. Does anybody have any additional questions? BNI Connect is what I do all day, every day, so I love answering people's questions. Mr. Tony Wolf, do you have any questions on implementing this in your region with your members? All right, well, on that note, I will say thank you guys so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, maybe even tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everyone, and happy connecting.